The movie The Princess Bride had a character that was mostly dead. Is mostly dead a real thing? How many levels of dead are there? How close to dead does a person have to be to have a near-death experience? Today on Speaking of Spirits, we discuss the near-death experience.
Hello and welcome to Speaking of Spirits. My name is Colleen and I'm here with my sidekicks Tim, Katie.
Hello.
And today we are going to talk about near-death experiences. And I'm sorry if you can hear the cough drop in my mouth clinking around, but have a tickle in my throat today. So near-death experiences. I'm not sure, have either of you had one?
I've been witness to some.
Ooh,
Yeah.
I want to hear those, but no,
Yeah,
not me. I
no.
want to hear those stories. No,
Cool.
I haven't.
So NDEs in the scientific community are triggered during some life-threatening episodes when the body is injured by blunt trauma, heart attack, asphyxia, shock, and so on. About 1 in 10 patients with a cardiac arrest in a hospital setting undergoes such an episode. They will describe them afterwards to their family. 1 in 10. I mean, that's
a lot of
that's
people.
actually a lot of people.
Yeah.
Thousands of survivors of these harrowing touch-and-go situations tell of leaving their damaged bodies behind and encountering a realm beyond everyday existence, unconstrained by the usual boundaries of space and time. These powerful mystical experiences can lead to permanent transformation of their lives. I've been clinically dead 3 times, but I didn't have these. I mean, I just felt like finally I'm getting some sleep kind of thing. That's how I felt.
Whoa. But I've heard that that's part of the near-death experience. It's just like a feeling of relief.
Yeah, that's what I felt was like just peace and quiet and calm and whew.
Wow.
Yeah, so, but my mother had one where she was, they were trying to bring her back to life in the hospital and she was floating above her body and watching everything. And she said that when she thought of my brother and I is when she returned to her body.
Wow.
Because it was like a choice. Either I'm going to stay here where I have no pain, or I'm going to come back to my kids. And then immediately she was back in her body and her eyes she woke up.
I think that's the most interesting thing is people have said they felt like they had a choice. That's part of like the universal near-death experience. They can like go back or they can go on.
Oh.
Isn't that interesting?
That is interesting.
Yeah, so I've been in a whole lot of crazy situations in my life.
For such a young guy, too.
Yeah, you know.
It's not like you were a roadie for like AC/DC, so.
You're getting bang for your buck, okay?
That's right. I'm banking on those brownie points. But 2 of the craziest professions, jobs, whatever you want to say, came when I was really young. So I worked for a funeral home when I was 16 to 18. And it was family friends who owned it. And there was a class in high school called EBCE, Experience-Based Career Education. And you had to pick out 3 jobs that you wanted to do. And so I wrote down nuclear physicist, pediatrician, and that's when the bell rang. And I wanted out of there. And so they had this job book. And I just flipped it open and mortician. Yeah, that one. And so I wrote mortician.
Oh my God, Jim. So you're like worse than I am.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you'll never guess which one they could get me into.
Right.
Oh, weird.
So I went for, it was a 6-week internship.
Well, it's probably good that they didn't send you to the reactor that's close by, right?
Exactly. Maybe I would have been green. But I went, and I was really strong. I was a football player for a long time. I lifted really heavy things.
Yeah, right.
I was me. And so while I was there during the internship, I helped them do some things.
Oh, God.
And
the things you've seen.
The things I've seen and the things I've lifted. And so after the 6 weeks of the internship, they came down and said, hey, you want a job?
You want a job?
Oh, Lord.
Right.
And I was like, well, I don't know. Do I want a job? And they gave me very good terms, especially for a 16-year-old kid. And I said, oh, yeah, I'll do that. And so I did lots of crazy things in my late teen years. And so I don't exactly have the gift of gab, but I can hold my own in a conversation. And a lot of times when family members are going through these deep losses and deep impactful times in their lives, that's the first time that they're really allowing themselves to open. And a lot of times they have to vent.
Oh, yeah.
And usually it's the experiences of the past few days.
Yeah.
And so I happened to be there. And so I'm the one that they were talking to. And so almost all of the hospice cases. So people that were sent home to die, like there's nothing more to do.
Right.
Almost all of them, 1 or 2 days before the time that they left, they came back. And they came back for a day. Just, it was them. They were eating, they were talking, they were giving life lessons, experiences, last words of wisdom, whatever it is. But they were back for a significant day. And usually at the end of that time, they would give some sort of affirmation that a lot of times it was okay, whomever was significant in their life is here. So mom's here, grandma's here, whoever's here. And it's okay. The next step's okay. And so that was pretty formative. Formative, I think that's a word. Yeah, that word.
Yeah.
For me, that it's okay. And that death is a natural thing. Right. And it's not to be feared. And so to me, it was more common than not to have, like, I'm going to call this near-death experiences because it was. They didn't come back fully. But it seemed like all of them had a positive affirmation that it was okay.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So they say that NDEs are not fancy flights of imagination. They share a broad commonality, okay? Becoming pain-free, seeing a bright light at the end of the tunnel or other visual phenomena, detaching from one's body and floating above it, or even flying off into space, like out-of-body experiences. Great. They might include meeting loved ones, living or dead, spiritual beings such as angels. There's also recollection or even review of lifetime memories, both good and bad, like my life flashed in front of my eyes kind of thing. I didn't have that. Like for me, it was just, everything went black and I was calm. I remember being very, very...
Were you aware of it though?
No.
Oh, interesting. Like you weren't like, oh, I'm dead.
Yeah, no.
Like
I got kicked in the head by a horse, and
geez.
I was clinically dead. I was made it to the hospital before I died. And I remember them working on me, trying to bring me back. And I just, it's like, what happened? And they said, well, you died. And yeah, so that has happened 3 times. And I don't, not kicked in the head 3 times, but 3 times in my life, I've been clinically dead for, I don't know.
Did you have a concept of time?
Yeah, I was going to ask that.
No. I just remember being completely peaceful.
Wow.
Like this, it's dark. I didn't see the light. Maybe it's because I'm going to hell. I don't know. I don't believe in hell. But you know what I'm saying? I just remember feeling completely and utterly content.
Wow.
Like, because I'm an insomniac.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't slept good my whole life. And so I remember feeling like, God, this is the best sleep. But I wasn't really asleep. So I just, this contentment, I was very content. I didn't see anybody. So maybe I wasn't really, really dead. I don't know.
Interesting.
Although they said, and they were reviving me when I came to.
Yeah.
So people also have a distorted sense of time and space, what you're asking about, Tim. There are some underlying psychological explanations for these perceptions, such as progressively narrowing tunnel vision. And I do remember that, the tunnel vision, especially with the head kick. I was talking and all of a sudden everything just started going black and boom, I was gone. Reduced blood flow to the visual periphery of the retina means loss of vision occurs first. Yeah. So that makes perfect sense. I mean, I do remember that.
So I've blacked out twice in my life. Well, not a fully blackout, but seeing the tunnel and and one of the times was giving blood, and that was weird. And the last time was last week.
Really?
Yeah, I've been on this journey. The end of February, they said I had type 2 diabetes, and I had to completely change everything or else. And they said or else. So I did. And I pushed myself just a little too far. And I was actually at work, and I bent down to get something, and I stood back up. And all of a sudden, the room was getting smaller. It's like, I think I'm done growing. And that's about the time that my brain was like, you're going down, sir.
Sir, this is the end for you.
Oh, man.
And both of those times were terrifying for me. And so I've always been scared of that. Sorry.
Which is interesting that, you were scared, but you, near death, they say you're not that scared.
No. So it wasn't a near death with you. You were, blacking out. With me, it was...
I was fully wanting to be conscious. Yep.
Yeah.
Please.
And I had no control over it. It
Yeah.
was leaving. I was leaving. I just remember going, this is it. I mean, I could feel that this was it. And I was just slipped right into... Yeah, so they can either be positive or negative experiences. The former, so the positive, receive all of the press and relate the feeling of overwhelming presence, something divine. A jarring disconnect separates the massive trauma to the body and the peacefulness and the feeling of oneness with the universe. I didn't get that.
Yeah.
I was just peaceful. Yet not all NDEs are blissful. Some can be frightening, marked by intense terror, anguish, loneliness, and despair. Oh boy, that's nice, huh?
Yay!
Yeah.
Yay!
That gives
Something
me hope.
else. I know, something else to freak out about. It is likely that the publicity around NDEs has built up expectations about what people should feel after such episodes. It seems possible, in fact, that distressing NDEs are significantly underreported because of shame, social stigma, and pressure to conform to the prototype of the blissful NDE.
Or it may be exactly what you were saying. Maybe they're scared they're going to the bad place.
Yeah, that's what my friends said. They're like, well, you're a witch, so you're going to burn in hell. I'm like, well, I don't believe in hell, so there you go. So, everybody's got their own belief system, and they're giving me hell about my journey. And I'm like, well, I just felt peaceful. I didn't think that was a bad thing, but I didn't see. Maybe it's because wasn't my time to go. That nobody came to me. I don't know. My dad definitely, he was interacting with somebody at the very end. You know, his eyes weren't open, but you could see he was laughing and carrying on, and, he had left the building at that point. But you know what I'm saying? So for him, he was fully engulfed in what was going on around him. But I didn't have that. So maybe it's because maybe all of my spirit guides said, well, she's not really going to die because they're going to bring her back. I don't know.
Yeah.
Who knows? Any close brush with death reminds us of the precariousness and fragility of life that can be stripped away, blah, blah, blah. So, I know there's all of this, it was a life-changing. It wasn't. I don't know. It's like, okay, now I'm back.
Well, that's probably because you deal with mortality.
Yeah, you're not as afraid of
Maybe.
the afterlife.
Yeah, so again, I don't know why, but a lot of times people talk to me. Maybe it's because I'm big and scary. Duh.
Totally not.
But it's amazing how many people have talked to me about anxiety and what it is to them. And most often than not, the people are dealing with mortality. And that's what gives them an anxiety attack, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I was lucky enough that I was able to have those discussions when I was young.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it's amazing how that mental game can be played and war waged. It's crazy. And I can see how a near-death experience could totally do that to someone who is in denial or haven't thought about it or whatever you want to say about it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I've just told everybody I know, just be prepared to be haunted. Because
I'm
I'm going to
coming back
haunt
to
the
haunt
hell
you.
out of everybody.
Yes.
And there
my
ain't
turn.
nothing getting rid of me.
Well, the podcast will be much more interesting.
I know, won't it?
Yes, I love that.
A 2017 study by two researchers at the University of Virginia raised the question of whether the paradox of enhanced cognition occurring alongside compromised brain functioning during an NDE could be written off as flight of imagination. Okay.
Yeah, I think I saw that.
Yes.
article.
So the researchers administered a questionnaire to 122 people who had NDEs. They asked them to compare memories of their experiences with those of both real and imagined events from about the same time. The results suggested that NDEs were recalled with greater vividness and detail than either real or imagined situations were. In short, NDEs were remembered as being realer than real. Like you'll never forget them.
I saw that. That's really, really interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
Realer than real.
Realer than real.
That's quite the phrase, isn't it?
Yeah, this is something like a 5-year-old would say.
Yeah.
Like, whatever. Realer?
It's science, okay?
Yeah.
We wrote it down.
Yeah. There was so the attempted near-death experiences have probably happened since humans have been alive, but we've just never discussed them. Or it wasn't until 1975 when Raymond Moody coined the term near-death experience in his bestseller called Life After Life. And then there was another book published called The Handbook of Near-Death Experiences in 2009. They noticed patterns in what people would share about these stories, and the researchers turned a phenomenon once derided as confabulation or dismissed as feverish hallucinations as into a field of empirical study, which I'm glad they did, because I think anytime we have these paranormal or not normal events that happen, people are afraid to talk about them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And generally, I think you have, if Tim and Katie both experience something, but there's no way for them to communicate it, there's probably a lot of people experiencing it.
Oh,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, I was going to bring this up at the end, but I'm going to bring it up now. Ha! So I've been extremely interested in stories of people who've done the ayahuasca. And it's amazing how many of their stories remind me of near-death experience stories. Like
Interesting.
the feelings of euphoria.
Okay, explain the
visions
ayahuasca.
So it's a substance that people in Southern America have come up with, and it's a really, really, really strong hallucinogen.
Oh.
And
So you're like totally interested in this.
yeah,
You're like,
it's a thing.
You can experience near death without being near death, okay?
so it's LSD basically.
It's stronger.
It was used, it used to be used for very spiritual
Oh,
shindigs.
Yeah,
I
like
guess.
interesting.
Tribes have done it for
So-
centuries.
You can tell how stupid I am about drugs that I didn't know this.
It's okay.
Did you know that nobody's ever died of an LSD overdose?
Or marijuana.
Yeah,
It is true.
that's true.
It is
Yeah.
true.
We also have a cannabinoid system in our body, in the nervous system.
Yeah.
Thus, the derivative cannabis. Anyway, I could go.
Okay.
I could go further.
Okay, we're just, yeah.
I digress. But I was reading an article, and they're trying to come up with a synthetic ayahuasca.
Synthetics are never good.
Exactly, but you don't have to deal with grandma's spit, so that's cool. So
What does grandma's spitting have to do with this drug?
that's how they make ayahuasca.
Okay, nope, not doing it.
Uh-huh.
Tempting, but no.
Yeah, as good as that sounds.
Anyway, you should just look into and see what you think about what the people saw in their visions
Yeah.
and their feelings, and see if it's close to this.
Well, that's interesting because, the Native Americans do the whole vision quest thing, but they're not, it's an out-of-body experience, definitely.
Which
But
is
it's
more
not-
like because I feel like
Astral
that's more
projection,
astral
yes.
projection because I don't know, everything I kind of saw was like really recent studies, like Dr. Bruce Grayson with the International Association of Near-Death Studies.
There's an association.
Do you think he has a certificate
international.
on his wall? Because I feel
I-
he has a certificate
I bet
on
he
his
has.
wall.
Oh, he
few.
does. No, he's actually hired by the University of Virginia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Alright.
like this is a real deal.
So
all right.
he's- okay.
I thought it was hokey at first. The website looks a little hokey. They need a new web designer, but he is hired. Yes, through the University of Virginia.
So that means the certificate has a gold border.
Yes, it
With
is
the embossed-
extra
Yeah.
fancy. Yes, was not.
It
free.
wasn't just printed
Right.
like on,
Yes,
the home
it's the
printer.
thick cardstock.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's saying so. They did a new recent study from 2022, where they're saying that there are distinct, while there are similarities between like the drug experience, the spiritual whatever, and near death. There are certain things that make near death really distinct that nobody's ever recorded.
Is that the realer than real phrase we came to?
The realer than real. Well, there's a fancy little list here. But yeah, part of it is like the big focus is like that return to life. Whereas like when you're on drugs, I don't know, not on
You're
drugs.
not dead.
Yes.
You're just out of the building for a while.
Yeah, but you kind of have that recognition of it and then you have that choice. Whereas when you're like whacked out on some substance, you're just along for the ride until it decides to exit your body. You don't really have that recognition and that choice. And then your death experiences are saying there comes that recognition like your mom had, where you kind of have that choice. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I don't remember a choice. I was just all of a sudden back. So
Yeah.
I don't, anyway. The near-death experiences have been with us like forever. And every culture, everybody in every culture has described
the
them.
same
So
thing.
it's
Coincidence?
Yeah,
I think not.
No coincidences. Those relay who are Christians or otherwise. Doesn't matter. It follows no religious norm. It follows no. The only commonality is that every walk of life has them.
Has the same, and they're the same experience. They follow like those
Right.
whatever 10 things.
Yep, and they're no more likely to occur in devout believers than in secular or non-practicing subjects. So it doesn't matter who you are.
It's hard to deny
Yeah.
the existence of it when it's across, when there's really no outliers to it.
Personal narratives drawn from historical record furnish intensely vivid accounts of NDEs that can be instructive, as any dry clinical case report can be. So in 1791, British Admiral Sir Francis Beaufort, I love that name, and I have to get another bloodhound and name him Beaufort.
Please do.
God. After whom Beaufort Wind Scale is named. Like I'd know that. Okay, but anyway.
Well, who else would he be named for?
Yeah, right? Beaufort. My God, I have to get another bloodhound just for that.
You know, I saw one for sale in Twin Falls.
What?
Puppies, and I almost sent you, but then I thought, I don't think she wants more animals. And so
Well,
I guess I
Daisy is getting old. I've had an Earl and a Daisy, and now I need a Beaufort.
You do need a
So anyway, getting back to the Admiral, he almost drowned, an event he recalled in this fashion. A calm feeling of the most tranquility succeeded the most tumultuous. Thank you.
There you go.
Sensation. Nor was I in any bodily pain. On the contrary, my senses were now of a rather pleasurable cast. Though the senses were thus deadened, not so the mind. Its activity seemed to be invigorated in a ratio which defies all description. For thought rose after thought with a rapidity of succession that is not only indescribable, but probably inconceivable by anyone who has been himself in a similar situation. Of course, the course of these thoughts I can even now in a great measure retrace. The event that had just taken place, thus traveling backwards, every incident of my past life seemed to be to me a glance, oh my God, the way they speak.
No kidding. I was just thinking,
I'm
it's
lost.
such a good time I live now.
So anyway, I didn't have any of that. I don't remember the thoughts. I just remember the pleasure of being pain-free and comfortable. That's all.
But that's still vivid. Like you vividly
Oh,
remember
that's true.
that.
But I didn't have any other thought. Not like,
Yeah.
Remember that one time at Disneyland? I don't have any of that.
You didn't have like the flashing memories or whatever.
No, not that I can recall. Anyway.
I often wonder if like when you had your near-death experience,
Yeah.
if there was just a complete amount of time where you just don't remember that.
Well, maybe. This last one went on for a while.
Yeah.
Because I died in a recovery room, and they couldn't figure out what was happening and why I was flatlining. It was after very minor surgery. Shouldn't have happened. And it took them a while to figure, like, we need to get her back in the operating suite and figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
So that had to have been more than a minute. So I don't know.
Oh, at least. I mean, I think about working at the hospital when I hear codes, and the emergency room doctor is the one that works on the codes. They're up there working on that patient for like 2 hours sometimes, So it's like,
Yeah, I don't
maybe
know.
time does have something to do with it, though. Like if you
For
weren't
me, it was an
coding as
instant.
long.
Like, it
Yeah.
felt like I was asleep and I'm awake. So I don't know how long that whole event took. I don't know for any of them, so I don't know.
Another crazy job I had, I was a firefighter for a long time. And it was amazing how often we had to administer Narcan. And Narcan's a crazy drug, and it completely takes the high away from the person that is dying from overdosing. And it's amazing, they usually come back and they're pissed.
Oh, because the
Because-
high's gone?
The high's gone. They just barely got there. How dare we? And a lot of times, I mean, they were dying, and we had to get there.
Right,
There's a long time involved,
right.
and there's no time to them.
It's
And
crazy.
so I often wonder if what happens during that time to a person in a near-death experience, if it's a lot
Yeah.
longer to them, and when they come back, there's just like a physical mental block or something. It's something I've always thought about.
Especially
interesting.
like being brought back by like adrenaline. That's got to be a different experience. This isn't Narcan, basically adrenaline.
And other spices.
And other spices to jazz it up. I think it'll be interesting. Like, hopefully there's continued research, because I saw a lot of stuff that mention that they're studying right now the brain cells, because your brain cells don't die after you die because they're still functioning. They're not damaged. They die over a long period of time, and they're starting to measure like the gamma activity and the electrical spikes in your brain after you're clinically dead.
Interesting.
So it's kind of like, does that it's not a near death anymore. It's like a death experience maybe. But I kind of wonder what's happening in that time.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting. I read an article this weekend about Australian researchers studying. You know how they have the body farms all over, so they study corpses, right?
Yeah.
So that and it helps police investigations, like insect activity and all this other stuff. So, yeah, I'm fascinated by it, and I'd work there because it's cool to me. But anyway, and I'm weird. But in Australia, they put cameras in caskets in different temperatures to see what happens to the body. And they have determined that the arms move for a year. A year in a casket. They will be, because, somebody's in a casket, the arms down their side. The arms completely come up to the hands to the shoulders, and they come back down, and they come back up, and they think it's the tendons as the body is, decomposing, that the tendons stretch and retract, and they keep doing this until finally they just give out. But it's the tendons moving the arms around. And I think the legs probably would too, but there's not enough room. So, and they're saying that all this research could possibly help police investigations. I don't know. It's kind of interesting to me. Wow. So I don't know why did we get on that subject. But anyway, so the body does wild things.
Yeah.
It's still, the whole wives' tale about, fingernails still grow, and that's been disproven because it's not really growing. It's the skin coming back. But to know that the arms are moving around for a year afterwards, they have documented body after body after body in all these different temperatures doing the same thing.
What even are our bodies? They're just
wild. That's just it. It's too, from what I know and believe, it's two different things.
Yeah, I was just going to say
you
that.
You have your soul.
Yeah.
And you have your body.
Right. And your body don't need your
together,
soul.
Why couldn't they have made me like Raquel Welch? I'm just saying. You know what I'm saying?
Who did this?
Well, I mean, come on. This one? Thank you.
It's a great question.
I'm just saying.
I don't know.
I'm coming back. Better make me a 10.
But we're together and we're this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then afterwards, there's our body.
Right.
And it's still here.
Right.
And it's still
moving.
Right.
Brain cells are still doing stuff.
Yeah.
And then.
But our soul's gone.
Right. And like I said on one of our last podcasts, is they've measured the bodies on death multiple times, and there's like the same consistent number of ounces leave. Mm-hmm. And they doctors are now attributing that to what else could it be but the soul leaving the body. Like it has a tangible weight to it.
Yeah.
It's very minuscule, but it's there.
It's there.
And it's been measured across different races and ethnicities and whatever.
I'm sure different health situations, comorbidities.
Like all of a sudden this amount of mass leaves the body. So what else could that be?
Wouldn't that be interesting if they could do that during like a near-death experience?
Ooh.
I mean, they're a little busy trying to like resuscitate
but you don't know when
but
that's going to happen. That's the thing.
But wouldn't that be cool?
That
because
would be fascinating.
There is people say they leave their body.
Right.
I'd be really interested to see that.
That would be.
Somebody fund that and get on it.
Yeah, right now.
Right now.
Okay.
Dear Mr. Musk.
Seriously.
So this lady, in 1991, she had an emergency gastrectomy. So usually those are pretty touch and go because gastric system can be pretty bad and tricky to work on. So on the 4th day following the operation, I went into shock and became unconscious for several hours. Although thought to be unconscious, I remember for years afterwards the entire detailed conversation that passed between the surgeon and the anesthesia. Well, it should be anesthesiologist, right? But that's not what she said. Oh, anesthetist. God, I should be
Why are
drinking
you getting
tonight.
all of these words?
I don't know. I was lying above my own body, totally pain-free, and looking down at myself with compassion for the agony I could see on the face. I was floating peacefully, and then I was going elsewhere, floating towards a dark but not frightening curtain-like area. I felt totally at peace. Suddenly it all changed. I was slammed back on my body and very much aware of agony again.
Oh, I don't
So-
like that one.
Well, yeah, and I think that's probably what happens to a lot of people in the hospital is like they're at peace and then bam, they're back.
Right, because they're getting resuscitated.
Yep.
And I'm pretty sure that if I ever had a near-death experience, that I'd be in the no category. Thank you. I know exactly how that body feels and what's going on.
Yeah.
I'd like to stay here, please.
I'm good, thanks.
Yeah. The underlying neurological sequence of events in a near-death experience is difficult to determine with any precision because of the dizzying variety of the ways in which the brain can be damaged. Further, NDEs do not strike when the individual is lying inside a magnetic scanner or has his scalp covered by a net of electrodes, right? So again, how do you study this? So it's just recollection.
I
That's
just want
all
them
they
to
can-
put a scale under the body, okay? I just want them to
Oh,
be
yeah, yeah.
taking constant weights.
So that just said that it doesn't happen if those things are applied? I'm sorry.
No,
My
it
brain
just
kinda-
says that you're not conveniently in an MRI
Oh.
where they can see this.
Okay.
And you don't have electrodes all over your scalp so they can measure the brain activity. So they don't, it's not, these are just happening at random.
Yeah,
Right.
it's hard. You can't put it in a lab and just...
I just envision people with tinfoil caps running all over.
You will capture
NDE
this.
experiences won't happen.
Yeah. Modern death requires irreversible loss of brain function. When the brain is starved of blood flow and oxygen, the patient faints in a fraction of a minute and his or her electroencephalogram or EEG becomes isoelectric, in other words, flat. This implies that large-scale, spatially distributed electrical activity within the cortex, which is the outermost layer of the brain, has broken down. Like a town that loses power in one neighborhood at a time, local regions of the brain go offline one after another. Boom, 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 boom. So the mind, whose substrate is whichever neurons remain capable of generating electrical activity, does what it always does. It tells a story shaped by the person's experience, memory, and cultural expectations. Given these power outages, right? So as the brain is shutting down, this experience may produce the rather strange and idiosyncratic stories that make up the corpus of the NDE reports. To the person undergoing it, the NDE is as real as anything the mind has produced during normal waking. When the entire brain is shut down because of a complete power loss, the mind is extinguished along with consciousness. If and when oxygen and blood flow are restored, the brain boots back up and the narrative flow of experience resumes. So, maybe that's the difference between my NDE that's dark and peaceful and someone who can remember everything. Maybe I lost all brain function too. I don't know.
That could be.
Maybe.
I struggle with it said based on cultural experiences. Most of the NDEs that I've read on anyway, and maybe it's because they're all my culture, I don't know, they've seemed awful similar. And it seemed more to be feelings than cultural experiences.
Maybe they're talking about, I saw the brilliant white light and pulling me towards it, which is, I would assume that most people who are religious equate that to heaven, the white light.
Yeah, but there's lots of people who... I can't think of the word. Who don't have that in their culture, that see some sort of light too.
Yeah,
I thought they meant just like clinically,
Is that...
like biologically, this is what is happening to the brain, but culturally, this is what we're recording through like
Oh, so they were...
verbal experience.
Oh,
okay.
Not that's what I thought.
yeah, I
'Cause
don't
it
know.
sounds. I don't know.
Scientists have videotaped, analyzed, and dissected the loss and subsequent recovery of consciousness in highly trained individuals, U.S. test pilots, and NASA astronauts in centrifuges during the Cold War. They still have those centrifuges at Johnstown Naval Air Station. There's still one over there.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's
Ooh,
pretty
gnarly.
cool.
That's cool.
Recall the scene into the 2018 movie The First Man of a stoic Neil Armstrong, played by Ryan Gosling, being spun in a multi-axis trainer until he passes out, right? When they have these trainers. At about 5 times the force of gravity, the cardiovascular system stops delivering blood to the brain. So, 5 Gs, right? Mm-hmm. And the pilot faints. About 10 to 20 seconds after these large G forces cease, consciousness returns, accompanied by the comparable interval of confusion and disorientation. Subjects in these tests are obviously very fit and pride themselves on their self-control. But they're gone, they come back.
Right.
So,
which is just, I don't know, that gives me the heebie-jeebies that they willingly do that.
Yeah. Well, you have to.
Crazy.
You have to know how your body's going to handle it, right? Because you're pulling the G-force in those jets and everything else. So
It is crazy, though.
the range of phenomenon that these men may recount may amount to NDE light, like tunnel vision and bright lights, and a feeling of awakening from sleep, including partial or complete paralysis, a sense of peaceful floating, out-of-body experiences, sensation of pleasure, even euphoria, and short but intense dreams, often involving conversations with family members that remain vivid to them years afterward. So these pilots are
That
experiencing
is
all this
so
stuff.
crazy to me.
They intensely felt experiences triggered by specific physical insult, typically do not have any religious character, perhaps because the participants knew ahead of time that they would be stressed out until this happened.
Yeah. That is so wild.
Yeah. So there's another part of the human body, which is the similarities between NDEs and epilepsy.
I did see that.
Yeah, which is really scary if for somebody who has epilepsy. So these epileptic fits partially impair consciousness and are often localized to specific brain regions in one hemisphere. They can be preceded by an aura, which is a specific experience unique to the individual patient that is predictive of an incipient attack. So they see the aura, they know that they're going to have a seizure. They also get unusual tastes, smells, or bodily feelings, deja vu, depersonalization, or ecstatic feelings. So that's scary.
I've experienced those, and it's very eerie. I wouldn't relate them to near-death experiences,
No.
but it is very eerie. It is very out of body.
Yeah, I have a friend of mine who has seizures, but he has no sorry folks, this cough. He has no he's been under an ECG for the brain. His brainwave doesn't stop. His brain activity doesn't stop. It doesn't change. He's completely aware of
it's happening.
anything you say. So we, like the last one he had at my house, I said, so you just said you were going to write me $1,000 check? Yeah. When he came out of it, he's like, nope. He's completely lucid.
Yeah.
He
No,
just can't
I've
control the
experienced
body.
those kinds of, they're scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, my wife, same things. She's on medication for it. And so they have it dosed to where she calls them weird feelings now.
Oh, no.
And instead of seizures.
Yeah.
And she says it's the weirdest thing. The first seizure she had, she acquainted it to The Little Mermaid. Like, she felt like she was in a water thing.
Oh.
And now their experience is like that, but she can usually focus and move herself out of it.
Interesting.
Yeah, it sounds like absolutely no fun.
The brain, man. The brain.
So, when are we really dead? We were talking about this with the brain activity.
I know. That's what I was like,
Or are we ever? Da, da, da.
Da-da-da.
Seriously,
Well-
what is death just a physical thing? So you could go off on a whole thing
Oh,
there,
yeah, you
too.
can. What happens to the brain at the point of death has been the subject of debate, right? So,
Right.
in 2016, some doctors accidentally recorded a dying man's brain activity. He had a cardiac arrest while undergoing a brain scan. The brain signals recorded just before and after the heart stopped are similar to those who experience when recalling memories and those recorded at the point of death in rats. So,
Oh, what?
yeah, okay, let's say it again.
Yeah.
The brain signals recorded just before and after this guy's heart stopped are similar to those that people experience when recalling memories. So when they have a monitor on your head and they are asking you to recall memories, certain areas of your brain light up, right?
Yeah.
So his brain did. And the brain signals recorded while this man died were similar to those recorded at the point of death in rats during scientific studies. Interesting, huh?
That's very interesting.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I think everybody, we experience everything completely differently, right?
Right.
And we talk about this a lot. Your perception is completely different than mine. I can look at something and have a completely different take on it. And that's the point of the reason why, we're in this mess that we're in this country. Politically, I think, too. We're so divided on everything. And because we want, damn it, you're gonna listen to my point of view, where I don't like your truth because there's a truth, but your perception is different. Mm-hmm. Your perception of something is going to be different than mine, and there's no reason why we can't agree to discuss that and not try to force our will on someone else.
Maybe try to get someone else's perspective.
Exactly.
Weird.
Exactly. So my NDE is going to be completely different than somebody else's. Does that mean I'm going to hell? I don't know. Don't believe in it. But could it? I don't know. I mean, my mom had the whole floaty thing. I was 12 when this happened, when she died. And I distinctly remember her talking about this to my dad when she came home from the hospital. Like a week later, she's like, Bob, I have to tell you what happened. And she's telling my dad, who's probably, he was the Pink Panther artist on top of everything else. So he's probably cartooning at the time and had one in one ear and what the other. So Mom and I talked about this for a number of years afterwards.
Yeah.
Wow.
And she said the only thing that brought me back was the thought I had to take care of my kids. Boom, and she was back.
That's crazy.
So maybe I don't have kids, so maybe I didn't have that draw, or maybe I don't know. Yeah. That's what the kind of social stuff is where I'm curious.
Yeah.
Like, okay, on these NDEs, not just talk to the patient about what they're experiencing, but what is their life like?
Yeah.
So we could see if there's any commonality links there.
Yeah.
Do they have children? Do they feel like things are undone? Do they whatever?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or were they forced? A lot of the ones.
Yeah, like the resuscitation.
Yeah.
Right.
Either physically or something else. A lot of the stories that I was reading, they were having a great time. Just happy to be there. And like, oh, sorry, not time yet. Bye.
Yeah.
So-
Booted right back in.
Yeah, I was forced and my mom was forced back. So I don't know.
Yeah. I think that's what's so interesting, though, to me about it is, like, even though everyone does have different perceptions and different backgrounds and, dying in different ways, like a traumatic death versus, a hospice patient, there's still those commonalities, which makes it really hard to deny that they're at least happening and they're at least real.
Right.
Even if there are different perceptions, it's still, I don't know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And maybe that's how we'll ultimately all find peace in this world. We're all gonna die.
Right?
Yeah.
We're all going at the same place.
Well, we would love to hear if you've had a near-death experience. You can write to us. Our email is Colleen at Pocatello Paranormal Research. So that's COLLEEN at PocatelloParanormalResearch.com. You can shoot us a message on Facebook or Instagram and tell us,
Tell us everything.
Yeah,
I
want to know. I want to know. Thanks for listening to this episode of Speaking of Spirits. We appreciate each and every one of our listeners.
Even the ones in Germany.
Right. Thanks again. Signing off.
You've been listening to Speaking of Spirits, powered by Pocatello Paranormal Research in Pocatello, Idaho. Thank you for joining us today. We're glad you could be here. If you're enjoying the podcast, please do us a favor and go to whatever platform you are listening to the podcast on and give us a review. We prefer the 5-star reviews. This helps us know how we're doing, and it helps others to find the podcast. Thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you on our next podcast.